This is The Sports Source, presented by Bill Hotz and Associates, and by Renewal by Andersen, with your host, John Pennington.
Good Sunday morning. Good snowy, icy, wet Sunday morning. We appreciate you being with us today. If you know of someone who's saying, well, I can't see this on DirecTV. DirecTV's having issues with some of the local stations today. Make sure to tell them we are on Facebook Live. We appreciate you tuning in, and I appreciate the hardy souls who made it in today and braved the bad roads out there. We're going to be talking about Tennessee's huge basketball game. Only the 10th time in Tennessee, only the 10th time since 1977. 40-something years that Tennessee has been in a top 10 versus top 10 basketball game. So we're going to talk plenty about that, a lot on the offensive coordinator search as well. Let's get right into it. First segment of our program brought to you by Bill Hotz and Associates. Everyone enjoys a good attorney joke. Attorneys enjoy good attorney jokes. The folks at Bill Hotz and Associates enjoy good attorney jokes. But it's not a joke if you lose time from work or you lose your hard-earned money on medical bills due to an accident caused by a careless driver. Bill Hotz and Associates is the group here in town, been doing it for more than 3 decades, that can help you put the law on your side when you have been injured in an accident by a careless driver. Bill Hotz and Associates. Want to welcome in our first wave of panelists today. We have right here VFL Mike Stoll, who came all the way through the snow. I appreciate it. Josh Ward is right there from WNML. And right down there, VFL Brian Randolph back with us. Appreciate all of you guys being here. The search for Tennessee's offensive coordinator rolls on. Let's take a look at some of the candidates that are now being talked about. There are 4 that we know of at the moment. Kendall Briles, the Houston offensive coordinator, who got big kudos from Lane Kiffin, who apparently he's been completely redeemed here. And nobody trusted Kiffin when he left. Now he's back to being the voice that everybody wants to hear from.
He's a reference now.
Yes, he's a reference. It's amazing. Kendall Briles on there. Dan Enos was interviewed. He's the Alabama quarterbacks coach that we've talked about for a while now. Doesn't seem to be a ton of buzz with him at the moment, but we'll see if that changes. Jeff Lebby was interviewed this weekend. He's the UCF quarterbacks coach. Like Briles, he's got ties back to the Baylor program. And then finally, Mike Yurcich, the Oklahoma State offensive coordinator. Now, as this thing has dragged on, I'm going to throw this out there. Let's take a look at some other possibilities. Could it be dragging on because they're going to swing for the fences with some of these guys who are still in the playoffs? Now, Dan Enos' name is still on there because Alabama's still in it. Could that be why things have slowed down? Could Jim Chaney be on the list? The former Tennessee, heck, he was an interim head coach. He has a win as a head coach here at Tennessee. He's at Georgia. Your first thought would be, well, he wouldn't leave to come back here. But you never know. If it's me, that's the first guy I'm calling. And there are rumblings this week that there are boosters out there who would like to see him come back and might be putting a little bit more cash in the kitty to get him back. From Georgia, you never know. He might not be enjoying working with Kirby Smart. Might have personal issues. You never know. Worth a shot. Tony Elliott, that one's far-fetched. Probably going to wind up the head coach at Georgia Tech. Chip Long has some ties to West Tennessee, Memphis, I believe. Notre Dame offensive coordinator. When you look at that list, guys, thoughts on candidates that are out there? Josh, I'll start with you. Do you think there's any chance they are going to swing for the fences, or the delay could be that they're looking at playoff guys, or is that too far-fetched?
Well, the delay is maybe provided a why not, if you want to, and that could have already happened. You could already check in and see, hey, is there a chance Jim Chaney would be willing to think about it? I mean, you could start to expand to the NFL. Could a Freddie Kitchens pop up? His name is popular because of his connection to Jeremy Pruitt, and he's with the Cleveland Browns. But the first 4, that would be where you would, I think, look at the realistic part of it. But I would say, again, why not with some of those big names, especially Jim Chaney. He knows the SEC, knows Tennessee.
Freddie Kitchens, an NFL guy that's being talked about. Jim Bob Cooter, who there's talk at Detroit that he could be in trouble there. But he's been such an NFL guy, it's hard to imagine him coming back to Tennessee. Of course, he was a former guy, so maybe. But I agree with Josh. I think those first 4 guys are up there. Guys, I don't think there's any reason to rush into this personally. This isn't impacting. You look at some of the guys who you've lost out on in recruiting, they're defensive guys. You got a top 2020 commitment from a quarterback. I don't think this is a reason to rush into hiring somebody at the minute. Mike, I'd be more focused on getting the right guy.
Yeah, I think it's about getting the right guy too. And you still got to let the chips fall where they may, because face it, UT is not a destination offensive coordinator position right now.
At the moment, yeah.
And unfortunately, that's the reality of it all. So what it is you got to let where head coaching openings fall out. You got to see where some of these guys that are coordinators may get at a top tier. One of the BCS teams that are in the top 4, they may get a headshot somewhere, and then who gets that? So it's kind of wait your turn in line right now, and unfortunately Tennessee's at the middle of the pack of wait your turn. And
you also, what is Tyson Helton saying? This is a first-time head coach. Mm-hmm. There's already been a change there. There were ripple suggestions that perhaps Pruitt was a little too hands-on. I'm sure that's the way Helton felt. Maybe Pruitt felt Helton didn't do a good enough job, and he had to get hands-on. Either way, if you were an offensive coordinator looking at Tennessee right now, you have to consider, okay, what's Jeremy Pruitt like to work with? Mm-hmm. One thing I want to hear from all of you, though, and this is the thing that fascinates me with Kendall Briles, but especially with Yurcich, just an up-tempo, 100-mile-an-hour offense. You play defense. There's one thing that goes along, hand in hand. You can look all the stats you want. Hand in hand, one thing that goes along with these 100-mile-an-hour offenses. Bad defense.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I was on the team. We did up-tempo offense, and up-tempo offense can definitely be a benefit for you, but at the same time, it could be a worse Achilles heel. When you go out there and go quick 3-and-outs, you put your defense on the field, you give the other team's offense extra possession. So it's a very dicey and tricky situation when you get an up-tempo offensive head coordinator.
Well, and the other thing is, even if you're effective, let's say it's best case scenario, you're scoring every 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. You're still putting the defense back out there. Get your thoughts on the tempo fitting what Jeremy Pruitt wants to do as a defensive guy.
So if I'm Jeremy Pruitt, I'm looking, okay, what do I need to do? Do I need to be able to extend my career as long as possible as a head coach of Tennessee? Because if he goes with an up-tempo guy, they don't have the bodies to do up-tempo. Mm-hmm. They got a whole house, clean house again. Yeah. They're already at a pretty bare cupboard with just a power type of SEC type of offense. When you go out and you try to change things, he's going to have to be able to buy himself more time. I don't know if he's looking at the clock going, I don't have 4 years to rebuild this thing, to get to an up-tempo. And will it work in the SEC? Mm-hmm. Works in some of the other conferences because everybody does it. They're the only one that would do it. I don't know. Thoughts?
Yeah, well, I do think that's why it's so important to find somebody that you can build on. Like the Hugh Freeze talk a week ago, was he going to be a one-year guy that would come in and you're making another change in a year? That's moved on, though. He's at Liberty, Hugh Freeze is. But a coach that can come in and work with Jeremy Pruitt, because if it didn't work with Tyson Helton, then the next coach might be asking, okay, am I going to be able to get along with Jeremy Pruitt from a coaching standpoint? It's also an interesting OC market right now. Florida State, Alabama, Auburn, all still looking for offensive coordinators. But what does Jeremy Pruitt want the offense to be? He needs to figure that out right now and find the coach. That's why Jim Chaney, I think, would be great if you could pull something like that off. He knows how to work with different coaches. He's done it in the SEC at different schools.
See, and that's the key. And Mike touched on that as well. And I had a fan tell me yesterday, I said, yeah, that's a good point. I'm going to steal that. Brian, I would like to see a guy with, as I said, I would have called Jim Chaney number one.
Oh, yeah.
But I'd like to see somebody with SEC experience. They don't have to learn the league. They don't have to, especially if you could get, Brian McClendon's name has not popped up here. We thought it would because he went after him last year at South Carolina. He stayed at Carolina. If you can get someone from the SEC East, they know everything about your schedule as soon as they walk in the door. To me, getting someone with, I would rather get a medium to upper tier SEC guy than a top-notch Big 12 guy, because this league's tougher, and I think the numbers might switch out. Your thoughts on getting an SEC guy first?
Yeah, I agree with you totally. When it comes to coaches and SEC, experience is everything. It's top to none. You could be a hoorah guy, you could be a coach's player, but if you don't have the experience, you don't know how the league works, you're at a disadvantage. So my number one guy would be Jim Chaney. I played under him. I played against his offense and practice every day. He's a very smart guy, and he knows Tennessee, knows the SEC, so I feel like with all the experience, as you mentioned, under his belt, he would probably be the best candidate.
Yeah, and I'll put Dan Enos in there again. I know that's not the sexiest name, but here's the deal. He's worked with Jeremy Pruitt, too.
True.
Which those guys, and again, I think the Chaney thing's a long shot, but it's worth the shot. And let me tell you something else. There are people who say, well, you're just going to get him a raise at Georgia. Fine. Screw up their salary pool. Make them spend more than they want. That's a win for you as well. I wouldn't worry about somebody turning you down because every school in the country gets turned down. It happens. Alabama got turned down for the head coaching position by Rich Rod. They survived. Don't worry about that. Go after the right guys. And I think Jim Chaney would be the one to call. But we'll see where this thing breaks down. We'll talk more about the Baylor guys a little bit later. There's a risk involved for Tennessee that other schools don't have to worry about. We'll explain that later. Next, Tennessee's got a date with #1 Gonzaga. We'll break that down next segment. Come on back.